Hello, creative humans. Welcome to the F Aligns podcast. I'm Andrew Foltz, and I'm here with my creative partner in crime, Kathy Palikoff, to talk about advice. How do you give advice to people? How do you get people to listen to you? And what is the moment where someone actually takes your advice instead of the 99% of times where they just completely ignore you, or they say they want your advice, but then they don't listen to you? So just all that. Lately I've been thinking about this dynamic that I have with my mom, because I've kind of turned into a vegan lately, and she's sort of indignant about it because she's been telling me to eat more veggies and plants in general for I don't know, my entire life. And then suddenly, a month ago, I start reading a book, and because I read this book, now I'm turning into a vegan. And I have things that I've been trying to convince her of for years. So I'm very interested in this topic, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a someone who's building a coaching business. How do you get people to change? Do you feel the same frustration, Kathy?
First of all, I love the topic of advice. I don't know if you know, but I start my day every morning by reading advice columnists. So
Yeah.
I'm addicted to Dear Abby, Dear Prudence, Ask Amy, and Dear Carol, and I go through them all. It's like one of my things. So this word advice is great. I mean, I think my fantasy is actually become an advice columnist. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I would love that. Um, I am always very frustrated when people don't listen to my advice. And
Yeah.
I also um, have been known to give advice many times when people do not ask for it. So I think the question often is, what is your intention of giving advice?
Yeah.
There's a very, very great expression that's called helpfulness is the sunny side of control.
Mm, yeah.
And for me, who, spent part of my life being a control freak, I always had advice,
Yeah.
to give people, whether they wanted it or not. I mean, you know that. You've suffered at the end of that many times, Andrew. And the nice thing is you put up your dukes and you go, I'm not taking it, Kathy, on
Yeah.
that. But I think it's a really interesting question on, and I think part of it, my analogy to advice is that it's sort of like writing. To be a professional writer, you can't take editing personally. You
Yeah.
can't take it personally when a client doesn't like something
Yeah.
or something. So when you give advice out, you're giving it out to the universe, you're giving it out to an individual, but then to experience the frustration like your mom is experiencing it.
Yeah.
Um, and that, by the way, is different because that fun
Yeah,
dynamic.
it's a very loaded dynamic.
Oh, it's very loaded. But I
Yeah.
think it's very different. I think it's different professionally. I think the closer you are to someone, like a family member or a friend, the more personal that advice gets
Yeah.
for
And
you.
it's threatening the closer someone is. And so it's I can read a book or watch a YouTube video, and I take that advice like that, but someone's been telling me this thing for 20 years, and I just don't pay attention to it at all. So the first thing I want to scratch off the list on this is it just completely pointless to give advice to someone who really clearly does not want it? Or has there ever been a time in your life where someone seemed like they were saying they didn't want advice, and then you gave them advice and they ended up applying it?
I think that because we can't predict the future, there have been times for me where somebody gave me a piece of advice and 20 years later I had the aha moment.
Yeah.
So 20 years it took for me, and then I went, oh, nuts, they said that years ago, right? Or on that. So I don't think it's pointless. I think it's about timing.
Yeah.
I think if it's a cause and effect, and I give somebody advice, they change. Cause effect. I think it's dangerous.
Yeah.
But I think to give advice, is not necessarily bad. I also think a lot of it has to do with intention. I mean, your mom's frustration was because she really wanted you to be healthier.
Yeah.
And I mean, she wasn't like, "Hi, I'm a vegan, so I want you to be a vegan." She wanted you to experience better health because you're her son.
Yeah.
Um, so, but I also think her reaction right now is interesting because her reaction could be, as opposed to going, "Oh, you finally got it," could be, "Yes,"
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I'm really happy.
Yeah.
So that's when giving being the advice giver, you need to go, wait a
It's like
second, why are
long-term
you
investing.
upset? Be happy,
Yeah.
you know?
So what I'm hearing on this first level of giving advice is that if someone is clearly not receptive to you, there's really two components. One is that you have to play the long game. This is sort of like, this is going to pay off in 20 years, maybe. And then the second part of it is like, well, maybe this won't pay it off at all, so I just kind of have to detach myself from the result. And it's like, here's my advice, I'm sharing my wisdom, my intention's good, and you can do whatever you want with it. So I think that's like the first level. The second level of advice giving is when someone comes to you for advice, but then doesn't follow through. I find this very interesting. I've had this experience of a lot of people, like, I have friends who have come to me and seen like the changes I've made with, drawing every day. And they're like, wow, that's incredible. I want to do, what you're doing. And I'm like, great, I'll teach you all the steps. I'll do it for free, and then I give them the first step and it's like crickets. So it's kind of like, what is that black hole that happens in people's minds? And maybe, what experience did you have where someone gave you advice and you were all about it, but then you didn't do anything about it? Like, what is that black hole?
Oh, that happens on a daily basis for me. You and I have experienced that. I mean,
Yeah.
you gave me really clear advice on how to use iMovie. And then
Yeah.
your advice was go do it. And that was 3 days ago. Okay. And I haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden now I'm going to go do something. I'm going to have lack of knowledge, right? Because I have to now recreate everything you said before, so I have to be dependent on this. I'm going to probably call you up and you're going to go, I said that, right? You're going to do that because I didn't take your advice to do it right at that moment.
Yeah.
Why didn't I take Andrew's advice? That's an interesting question. Part of it was I got distracted on other things.
Yeah.
Part of it, I think, was I was a little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So I think one of the problems with advice is we don't usually give one piece of advice, right?
Yeah.
We go through the whole story.
Yeah.
So I have a doctor I really respect, and her view on weight loss is really simple: make one change a month. That's
Yeah.
it. Don't do anything else.
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't listen to that, because I like more drama in my life. I mean, in reality, what your mom didn't see was that she didn't see your journey to becoming a vegetarian,
Yeah.
because it didn't happen when you read that book. You've been on this path for a couple of years now, minimally, of
Right.
sort of doing stuff. So we don't always have that part of it.
Yeah. God, I think, well, there's this real frustration around that because you sometimes it's like, I can see the future. I can see exactly where people are going. I can see the exact mistakes they're making, but I can't quite phrase things in a way that helps them understand. And maybe that's impossible, but what do you think are some of the ways that you can figure out how to give people information? I mean, obviously making it simple is one, but like, how else can you frame information so that it really resonates with people and they know what to do with it and it fits within their worldview?
The people who have had most effect on me don't do it at all like I do it. Okay, which is really an interesting lesson. They do it with a probing question. They really,
Socratic method.
they're, what they want me to do is come up with the answer.
Mm,
Okay, I love giving people the answers. Capital T, capital A, right? The answer. And that, but I hate anyone giving me the answer,
Yeah.
right? So when I think I told you the time when Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. asked me the question about, Kathy, why are you being distracted right now? If he had said it in, Kathy, you're distracted. You should, let's not have this conversation right now.
Yeah.
I would have, that whole incident wouldn't have made that kind of impact on me.
Yeah.
Because he posed it as a question, it was really useful. So one method I think is to do it as a question. The other I think is to relate your own personal experience,
Mm-hmm.
without assuming that they're the same. So as opposed to giving, here are the 5 things you need to do, because I know the outcome will be better.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, you don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we often have an assumption that the outcome is going to be what we're seeing in our head.
Yeah.
But I think those would be 2 things that would be really effective. Asking questions and sort of making it very relatable to our own. I love hearing about other people's mistakes,
Yeah.
because then I'm going to believe someone who screwed up and then found redemption way quicker than I am the person who only was redeemed all the time. I don't listen to them. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I know what you mean. So okay, so I'm seeing 3 levels. I'm seeing the person who doesn't want advice. I'm seeing the person who you need to frame the advice properly by understanding kind of like, or creating a situation that they can relate to, and then also kind of leading them to the answer by asking them questions, which kind of gets their own brain thinking about this and coming up with a solution instead of you handing it to them. What what about the person who goes through those 2 steps? They're like totally on board. They've got all the passion, and then they get off the call, they get off the conversation, and then they get distracted. How do you help people not get distracted?
I think well, so I think that there's part of those are people who are distracted. I also think that people can sound very agreeable.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes. Oh, I'm definitely going to do that. And they sort of go off, but they were really never going to change. And
Yeah.
I think at that point, what our responsibility is to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And really, the only currency that I care about in my life anymore is time. So it's really hard for me to go, no, thank you, I'm out of here. And I think we have to do that.
Yeah.
There have been people in my life who it took me a really long time to realize that they didn't want help. I mean, I was married to 2 people who had serious drug addiction
Yeah.
problems, and one of the things that you're always told is that until somebody gets there themselves, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
I didn't want to believe that.
I know.
I mean, but I do now. So, and what's different about my life now is I recognize it quicker.
Yeah.
So I guess what I would say is that I think you have to really know how much time you want to spend on someone,
Yeah.
and even if it's a client or a friend, at what point is it just not giving, are you not being so helpful, and B, it's so distracting to you
Yeah,
that
it's
it's not
pulling
worth
you
it.
down with the ship, and it's not making any difference at all.
Right.
So, I mean, I think the last piece of this is really like, what is the difference between people who are open to change and people who are not open to change? I don't think it's that black and white. I think people are certainly more open to certain types of change, whereas some other people are more closed off to that type of change. But I've been in times of my life where like maybe I was really depressed or something, and I was just so closed off to change. You know, I might have said I want to change, but I wasn't willing to put any energy into it. So like what is the difference between someone who is open to change and someone who is totally closed off to it?
I think it's pretty simple. I think there are people who are teachable and there are people who are not. You know, I think within those spectrum, you can be at different points, but you have always been someone who's teachable. There may have been moments in your life where you didn't want to learn anything,
Yeah.
but your core personality was one of curiosity and wanting insights and learning. There are other people who just don't have that. And I think we recognize them pretty quickly. We just don't want to believe.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, there are people, and you and I have both have clients who, and shared clients and separate clients who were not teachable.
Yeah.
And that is not fun. I mean, because they fooled us. Okay,
Yeah, they
hired
have all the talk, but none of the
yeah,
action.
and they hired us because they wanted our expertise. They wanted our teaching. They wanted,
Yeah.
but they didn't.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I mean, to sum this up, very first step, someone that doesn't want to be someone that doesn't want to be taught, you have to let go of your attachment to the outcome, and then just also accept that it may be a really long-term outcome. You have to ask questions, you have to lead them, because I've experienced this so many times, but anytime you try to push someone, they go in the exact opposite direction that you want them to. And then another part of it really is just like knowing the people that will and will not change. And I think it's just being honest with yourself after you've had a certain amount of experience. It's like, this person is not ready to change. This person is not going to change. And if I keep trying to change them, I'm just going to go down with the ship. So I want to go up with the ship. So I'm going to end the podcast on a happy note. And where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
well, they can go to my website, which is gofirestarter.com. They can email me at Kathy@gofirestarter.com, or they can find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, all sorts of different places like that. How about yourself?
So people can find me at the Lines everywhere on social media, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and on flines.com. So there will be a link to this article in the description below. So if you guys want to leave a comment and give us an example of time you've tried to give advice, whether it was successful or maybe not so successful, let us know about it. I'll have a description link below, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.